Who you were in the park with?
I don't know names. I just got lost.
Where did you see the lady?
One lady.
The female jogger was severely beaten and raped.
Every black male who was in the park last night is a suspect. I need all of them.
What's going on with my son? Your son was involved in a rape in Central Park.
What? No,
Wait a minute.
impossible.
Wait a second.
They saw you rape the lady.
I didn't see a lady or hit anyone. I didn't see any lady.
Kevin.
I didn't see any lady.
I want to see my son right now, right now.
Whatever they said I did, I didn't.
That's a trailer for the Netflix production When They See Us. I'm Pastor Marty. This is the Afternoon Drive. I just watched this. I don't know what they call these, if this is a mini-series, an extended movie. It was a 4-part episode retelling the story of the 1989 Central Park Five. 5 black youths who were charged with, accused of, and found guilty of raping and the attempted murder of a white jogger in Central Park. Now, I watched going into it knowing that Oprah Winfrey was one of the behind-the-scenes producer. The director of this series was the director of Oprah Winfrey's A Wrinkle in Time. So I understood from a political vantage point, from a Black Lives vantage point, from an ideological vantage point, where they were going to come from. I have to tell you right out the gate, the acting was incredible. It was first rate. The storytelling of this was excellent. It was chronologically laid out impeccably. They did a super job, and I do not know who the 5 young actors are who portrayed the 5 youths. They were outstanding. The young actor that played Kevin, I mean, here's this obvious 14-year-old little boy, scared to death, scared out of his mind as he sits in this police precinct. No parent, no guardian, no lawyer, just being interrogated for hours on end by the police. The actor who played Corey Weiss, I'm not sure if this is considered an Oscar category because it's Netflix, or if it's considered an Emmy category because it's, television. I don't know. But the actor who portrayed Corey Weiss, phenomenal. Oscar caliber, Emmy caliber, all the way. The acting was superb. Storytelling, dead on accurate. This is a horrible case of injustice. These 5 youths, 4 of which were sent off to a juvenile detention center. 1 who, because he was 16, went straight to adult prison. He ended up in Rikers. Then he was transferred to Attica, and from there, another prison in the New York State prison system. And these places are nothing more than hellholes on earth. I mean, they're just atrocious places that none of us would want anyone that we loved or cared about to be in. That said, my only issue with the movie from their political agenda was the inference that they tried to draw Donald Trump into the story. Let me explain. The Central Park Five is how black people, unfortunately, from some experience, feel as though that whenever anything bad happens, the police immediately target the black community. And the night this young woman was raped, there were, I'm sure on any given night, especially in summertime in New York City, there are thousands of people in Central Park, many of whom happen to be people of color. And so immediately they round up all of these black youths that were known to have been in the park that night. And they zero in on 5 of them who didn't even know each other. And through endless interrogation, denial of bathroom privileges, no food, no parent, and just constantly telling them basically, if you tell us what we want to hear, you get to go home. And when some parents were finally allowed in the interrogation room with their children, they were arguing with their own kids. Just tell them what they want to hear so we can get out of here. But these kids knew we didn't do this. The prosecuting attorney knew they didn't do it, and none of the DNA evidence matched. But yet, she, for political reasons, tried the case with great vigor. When they brought the victim into the courtroom, it was over. And they had these boys on videotaped, edited confession. You know, if I'd been denied food and bathroom and sleep for 30 hours, I would probably confess to anything they wanted me to confess. Just let me go to the bathroom. Let me have something to eat. Let me sleep in my own bed. Eventually, the person who actually committed these atrocities, who, by the way, was already in prison for having committed 4 identical rapes the same way, came forward, confessed, and presto magnifico, his DNA matched the DNA of the assailant in Central Park that night. These 4 youths had already been released from juvenile detention. One young man, Corey Weiss, had served 14 years in adult incarceration and refused to tell the parole board to get early parole that he did it. So he was released. Finally, when this other person, the true predator, came forward and admitted it. There was a $41 million lawsuit awarded to these 5 now adult men. And we think to ourselves, is that enough? I mean, think of the injustice they endured. But they tried to draw Donald Trump into the narrative. As they were doing these flashback scenes, this took place in 1989, so as they have the youths in the court battle going on, they had some clips of Donald Trump, a young Donald Trump, being interviewed on talk shows about crime in America. And he kept using phrases like, these animals, we need to get them off the street. They need to be behind bars. They need to stop harassing and victimizing, our citizenry. Now, the truth is, anybody in 1989 would have said, get the animals off the street. And we don't even know that he was necessarily talking about the Central Park 5. And again, the last time I checked, Donald Trump was not a member of any police organization. He would have certainly no insider baseball. He wasn't privy to any of the interrogation that was going on, and to see how it was done, and to see that these boys were coerced into confession. He only knew what he was being spoon-fed by the media. The New York Times, the New York Post, the Evening News, which he's now being vilified for calling fake news. Well, maybe this is one of the reasons why he calls it fake news. Because all he knew is what the media was telling him happened, what the newspapers were reporting happened, and when he's asked on a talk show, what do you think about these 5 guys that raped this girl? Oh, they ought to be put in jail and throw the key away. Well, anybody would have said that, because that's the way the media portrayed it. Not to mention, any of us today would still say, if there are animals loose on the street that are beating old people for Social Security checks and raping them and killing them, get those animals off the streets. And that's not about color. I don't care if that individual is white, brown, white, Hispanic, black, white. If they act like an animal, they ought to be treated like an animal. And they certainly don't need to be roaming around among us. I think we should all agree on that. But again, I get the premise from where the movie was coming from. These 5 youths were rounded up simply because of the color of their skin, and they wanted to make the narrative fit, and it didn't. And that was wrong. That's a grave, gross injustice. But to try to make it seem like at the time, and of course you have people as they're watching the news footage and Donald Trump talking, that no good, racist, and blah, blah, blah. Wait a minute. That was totally wrong. That is bad storytelling. That is propaganda. And again, Donald Trump had nothing to do with those 5 black young men being tried and convicted. That was on the district attorney. That was on the New York judicial system, which was in the hands of very liberal individuals. And let's not forget the whole zero tolerance. That was a Bill Clinton stroke of the pen law. It's been Donald Trump, and it's amazing how that was completely left out of this Netflix production. It was Donald Trump who has done away with that, who got that through Congress. The whole 3 strikes you're out. It was President Trump who rolled back the President Clinton era law, which President Clinton, Hillary Rodham Clinton, and even Joe Biden referred to the people that this law was meant to deal with as predators. And it went 9-1 black. So maybe Oprah and the director and the storytellers of this movie should tell the whole truth. Again, in 1989, anybody would have said, based on the news coverage of the time, lock them up. Donald Trump had nothing to do with 5 young men being falsely accused and falsely convicted of a crime they did not commit. Is it sad this happened? Absolutely. Anybody with any empathy or sympathy, this was a gross miscarriage of justice. Thank God, literally, that someone came forward and said, I did it, and confessed, and that these 5 young men were exonerated. And I know they will never get that part of their lives back, but certainly they have opportunity now as they move forward with their lives to do something to help impact and make change. And that's a good thing that can come out of a horrible thing. And for the people within the police department that railroaded these kids, to the DA who pushed it, to the lead investigator who uses an opportunity to write crime books, may they rot in hell for their dishonesty. But to try to draw Donald Trump into this, that too is dishonest. That's it. Thank you for watching the video. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you don't do so already, and make sure you smack the bell for my next rant.